The Cura de Ars, a memoir of Jean-Bautiste-Marie Vianney, by Georgina Molyneux. Chapter 10. Penetration and sagacity manifested by Marie Vianney and his counsels. It would perhaps be difficult to imagine a more striking scene than that which met the eye of the stranger at Ars, when the cure each day made his difficult way from the presbytery to the old house of the Providence, where the missionaries lodged. As soon as he appeared, every head was uncovered, and one general and unanimous cry of joy was heard, whilst every eye was turned with eager curiosity or devoted admiration, or reverential awe towards the pale and emaciated priest, whose presence had power at once to efface every other thought. The dense crowds that awaited his appearance now thronged his footsteps, only vying with each other which should approach the nearest to his sacred person. Sometimes, as it is said to have been the cause with the saints of old, the devoted people endeavored to cut off fragments from his raiment in order to make relics of him. Vianney, in the meantime, apparently as much unmoved by all these marks of reverence as if they had been addressed to someone else, quietly pursued his way, attentive only to the questions by which he was on all sides assailed. For the edification of the reader, we transcribe a few of these questions, which on an occasion such as that we are describing, we made in the hearing of the Abbé Monument. Father, my mother is very ill. Some say the case is hopeless. Others that she may be cured. What are we to believe? My father, one of my parents is threatened with loss of sight. Would it be advisable to try the effect of an operation? My father, will my child recover? Will my husband be converted? Will my children be saved? My father, ought I to increase the number of my clerks? Ought I to abandon my business? Ought I to buy the manufactory? Ought I to live in the country? My father, tell me in what cause the temporal and spiritual interests of my son would be the best advanced. My father, what are we to believe with respect à la Salette? Is it the miracle of Rimini to be credited? What is your opinion of the Hermit of the Mountains? What are we to think of Louis the 17th? My father, what is your opinion of such a style of dress? This was a question which, it appears, was frequently addressed to Marie Vianney. On one occasion he received a letter asking his advice with respect to a mode which then threatened to become fashionable, and which has since generally prevailed. The subject was treated with such exceeding gravity as to amuse even the austere priest himself. Poor ladies, said he, in speaking of the tyranny of this mode, they drag mountains after them. They embarrass themselves, and they embarrass everyone else. It is well that they have enlarged the streets, but they have need to enlarge the doors also. Poor ladies, with their fashions they suffer in this life in order to suffer in the next. When the questions addressed to him were idle or indiscreet, or if they wounded his humility, he manifested his disapprobation by a gentle irony. My father, said a lady to him, I have waited here 3 days without being able to approach you. In paradise, my child, we will converse in paradise. I have traveled 200 leagues to see you. It was not worthwhile to come so far for that. My father, but one word. My child. You have already said 20. My father is my husband in purgatory? I have not been there. My father, will you tell me what is my vocation? Your vocation, my child, is to go to heaven. Sometimes when he divined that it was not the truth which his inquiries sought, but rather the satisfaction of their curiosity or self-love, his replies were more severe. My father, said a young girl, whose piety he thought was tainted by a species of egotism, tell me where I should pass my novitiate, with the dames de la Navité, or with the dames de la Sacre. I should prefer the former because they know me. Alas, replied Marie Vianney, elles ne connaissent pas chose. Those that came to ask the advice of the Cura de Ars generally repose with the most unlimited confidence upon the wisdom of his decisions. We have before us numerous examples of persons who, uncertain with respect to their vocation in which they could best serve God, needed but one word from him to bring them fixed and definite purpose, from which they never afterwards swerved, and of which they never repented. The extraordinary rapidity of his replies, which were often uttered before the question was hardly finished, and the great promptitude of his decisions were the more remarkable of that Marie Vianney was so humble and so distrustful of himself, and the subjects agitated were frequently of the most grave and solemn importance. A person came to ours in order to ask for the advice of the cure on a difficult case of conscience in a matter of succession. The question was delicate and complicated. Vianney at once gave his opinion. Then, seeing that his inquirer was not convinced, he asked permission to consult the ecclesiastics, who were that day assembled in conference at Ars. Opinions were divided. Many pronounced against Vianney, who, according to his usual habit, referred the question to the bishop. The episcopal council approved his decision, and Messenger Devi, in his reply, begged him to communicate his letter to the solicitor, in order to remove from his mind all further disquiet. A cure in the diocese of Autun had a very difficult and intricate case of justice and of restitution to determine. He had taken much pains to inform his mind on the subject, in order to come, if possible, on a decided opinion. He had read, reflected, consulted, but all in vain. He still continued, doubtful and perplexed. In this dilemma, he came to Ars. Here his question was at once resolved, and he felt as if a veil had fallen from his eyes. Marie Vianney said but one word. Still, that word had been said by no one else, nor had he found it in any of his treatises, which he had been studying. Yet so vivid and instantaneous was the light which it threw upon the most difficult point of the question, that the astonished priest could not refrain from exclaiming, "Marie the Cure, where did you learn your theology?" Marie Vianney silently pointed to his prie-dieu. It would be easy for us to multiply, from the statements before us, examples of the surprising wisdom and penetration of Marie Vianney, as manifested, not only in cases which seemed to lie within the domain of his professional knowledge and experience, but also in matters where the temporal interests of communities and even of nations were concerned, and in questions of grave and solemn moment in political science, which though they had risen up to the surface of society, it would seem could only be fitly answered by those who had endeavored to sound the depths from which they had sprung, and to whom the mysterious laws of human thought were no strange study. The Abbé Molyneux, speaking of the excellent judgment of Marie Vianney, and of the extraordinary influence which he exerted over the minds of other men, writes, "On ne peut pas dire que chez le Cura de Ars, cette souhaite de vous, cette rapidité de coupe d'oreille, et cette lassitude de son venissant d'une grande perspicacité naturelle. Il semblait y avoir plutôt dans l'esprit d'un l'homme prêtre un type de vérité, un critérium latent mais infallible, un clef qui lui servait à l'ouvrir les portes du cœur, les plus secrets et les mieux gardés, un fil qui l'oriente à se retrouver dans le dédale des consciences, une corde qui vibrait à l'unisson de tout ce qui était droit et juste, et qui résonnait en désaccord de toute ce qui était mon texte inexact. And again, Marie Vianney n'avait dans le cœur ni aurait ni ambition ni avare, et par conséquent, dans l'esprit ni tendance, ni faiblesse. Il ne croyait pas à la lutte vacillante de l'immigration. Il n'était pas soumis à la tyrannie de sang. Il avait cette limpidité et cette justice de regard que donne la cruauté d'intention, et que l'esprit lui-même met avant l'expérience qui nous vient des années. Dans tous ses jugements, les raisons étaient sa loi, et les volontés de Dieu sont flambeaux. Rien n'enfermant les démarches et ne rend le pied sûr comme de n'avoir à cœur que la justice et la vérité. In admitting, however, the justness of the sentiments here expressed, and even in granting, so far as his piety is concerned, all that Monimum would claim for Vianney, we are still at a loss to account for the facility with which this man, whose natural capacity was so inferior, that even in the days of his youth, and when he felt that his future vocation in life depended upon it, he was absolutely incapable of serious study, or of any sustained application. We are still at a loss to comprehend by what powers such a man was able to, at once, and with the most perfect facility, to master the most difficult and intricate questions, and at a glance, as it were, or by one little word, to relieve the perplexity and embarrassment of many a one whose mental calibre was far superior to his own. Yet such appears, beyond a doubt, to have been the case. From all quarters, men appealed to the holy priest for his aid and encouragement in favor of rising foundations, new establishments, infant communities, literary works, destined sometimes to a great future celebrity. With a word, he decided a vocation, built a monastery, or caused a school, a providence, an asylum, or a hospital to spring from the ground. His marvelous penetration and sagacity could perceive at the first glance the difficulties to be encountered in the execution of an enterprise, the reasons for and against the undertaking of it, projects which offered no real utility, or which appeared to proceed from an indiscreet zeal. He rejected with absolute determination, whilst his warmest sympathy and cordial cooperation were always at the service of those institutions of which he believed the object to be truly good and Christian. And thus, in some way or other, the name of the Cura de Ars is said to be associated with nearly all the great works in France, which had their rise contemporaneously with his ministry. It was, however, not very easy to induce Marie Vianney to leave those fields of holy contemplation in which his soul delighted to dwell in order to mingle with the affairs of men, and it was often only by patient waiting and well-timed questions that his friends succeeded in elicting from him his opinion with respect to the great political events of his day. Some time after the Congress of Paris, a representative of the religious press desired to know the opinion of Marie Vianney with respect to a diplomatic event which had disconcerted his patriotism, and of which many wise and thinking men dreaded the probable result. He addressed himself to M. Monimum, and soon afterwards an opportunity of approaching the subject in question occurred. It was during a walk which Marie Vianney was accustomed to take once a year, on the day of preceding the second Fête Dieu, in order to inspect the preparations for the temporary altars, that the following conversation, which has been likely transcribed by M. Monimum, took place. Marie the Cure, an event is now transpiring in Paris, which troubles the consciences of Catholics and afflicts the friends of the government. A meeting of the plenipotentiaries pollenteries of Europe has taken place, and words have been uttered which threaten a change in the imperial policy with relation to the Holy See. What is your opinion of this? My friend, if we were righteous, those who rule us would be righteous also. But God sometimes makes use of kings to chastise nations. Is it your opinion that the emperor will withdraw his troops from Rome? No, my friend. It is that which constitutes his strength. His soldiers defended him better in Rome than in Paris. It has been suggested that you could perhaps warn the pouvoir. Marie Vianney made a gesture which seemed to say, "Who am I to give such warnings?" Then he added, "A drop of ink would do that." M. Monoman regrets that the drop of ink was not expended. He thinks it might have spared the rivers of blood which were afterwards shed, and prevent those tears. Terrible à ceux qui les font couler. The war in Italy was a source of profound grief to Marie Vianney. To see two Catholic nations engaged in mortal conflict, the armies of the cross dying, with their blood a Catholic soil afflicted his very soul, and he dreaded lest the warfare carried on beyond the Alps should reach the home of him whom he regarded as the father of the Christian family. He knew that the cause defended by his country was that of a government which had failed in its allegiance to the Church of Rome, and he regretted that France had not made the condition of her alliance the reconciliation of the government with the Mother Church. As the struggle was prolonged, his trouble and anxiety increased. He wept bitterly during the Te Deum, which was sung after the battles of Magenta and Solferino, and when asked by his friends a few days before the peace of Villafranca how long this war would last, his answer was, "As long as our sins." When a short time after the march desired peace between the emperors had been concluded, Vianney and his friends were mutually congratulating each other, and indulging in the bright hopes inspired by this union between two great Catholic powers. He suddenly interrupted the cheerful conversation by a deep sigh and exclaimed, "Ah, mon ami, ce n'est pas fini." Thank you so much for coming back on this next day of Marie Vianney's life. I hope everyone listening to this has a great weekend, a great week, a great day, whatever time you're listening to this to. And God bless.
Gracias por vernos. Suscríbete al canal de Misión Ruah YouTube ahora para que podamos seguir difundiendo la misericordia de Jesús en el mundo entero. Y no te olvides de compartir, darle un me gusta, comentar y suscribirte al canal para ser un misionero Ruah más.